here tonight. We'll get started in just a minute. So if you are not at your seats, I think most of us are. I think I know, does the sound okay? Okay, thank you. I can count on you, 5-star sound. I know most of you, I believe it's been hard with COVID, but I'm Nate Schout, I'm the principal at MCS. Thank you all for showing up tonight, for coming out. It feels great that we can do this again and get together and just celebrate, take a night to celebrate Muskegon Christian and what it does. Start out with a few thank yous. Just thank you for the people in this room, the decades and years and decades of an investment that you've made into MCS in the 140-year history of the school. Thank you for the school board, the support that you've had for me and for the school this past year and a half of craziness. To say it lightly, I think, but through it all, the school board has been nothing but supportive, rowing the same way. It's been a blessing to be a part of, so thank all of you. Thank you for the staff who's here, who do the real work, who are in the classrooms with the kids each and every day. We had a devotions at our training, and Marshall Hoodfluer, the pastor at Covenant Life, was talking about how there's not enough thank yous to go around to the teachers and the staff who are in the building. So thank you all who are with kids each and every day for the whole day. Thank you to Lisa Bonilla right here and her family who put on this event. Mary Seitzma, the wonderful food we have. It's been hard to get to know all of you, COVID probably being the big reason. So a little bit about me. I grew up in West Michigan. I went to Holland Christian, so I'm born and raised going to CRC Church. Grew up through Holland Christian. From Holland Christian, I took a little detour from where most of my friends went. I did not go to Kelvin, Dort, or Hope, so I shouldn't say that too loud. But I went to Grand Valley, becoming a teacher, met my beautiful wife Becky at Grand Valley. She's going to be embarrassed that I even said she was sitting over there. That's a terrible idea. After Grand Valley, Becky and I decided, let's go try something different. Let's try something new, no kids, let's just go. So we moved to Phoenix, Arizona. I taught at Phoenix Christian School. It was a lot like Holland Christian, I would say, just who it served, who it was. My third year at Phoenix Christian, I started to feel something, God moving in me. Try something different. You can do more. So I took a leap of faith and I started working in an inner city school in Phoenix. And it wasn't until then that I realized the bubble that I grew up in. The first day being at an inner city school in Phoenix, the embarrassment I had trying to pronounce names of the kids who moved to Phoenix from Mexico, and my colleagues standing behind me laughing at me as I'm going through the student list that I had. It was like, I'm not in West Michigan anymore. And that was a good thing. It was then I realized there was so much more to school, so much more to life than growing up in this little bubble of people who are all the same. Becky and I had our first kid. We decided 2,000 miles away from family probably wasn't the best. So we moved to Detroit for 2 years, and we taught in inner city Detroit for 2 years, and same thing, being immersed in a culture that was different from what I knew. I try to bless the kids every single day in what I teach, but I was equally blessed by them and learning from how they grew up, learning from their culture, learning from the experiences they had. And when we were in Detroit, I didn't really think we'd ever send our kids to a Christian school, because all I knew in a Christian school was kind of people the same. And then it was in the winter of 2020 that I get a text from a friend that said, hey, there's a job in Muskegon. And I grew up with her, and come to find out that my best friend in college sister worked at the school, Liz Potts at the time. I went to school with her brother. So I applied and learned more about the school. And I was taken back that a Christian school could look like Muskegon Christian, could feel like Muskegon Christian, could serve the people that Muskegon Christian does. And I fell in love with it. I knew I needed to work there. And so we took the leap of faith in the middle of a pandemic. We moved to Muskegon, and I'm so blessed that we're here today. The teachers and I had a training Thursday, Friday on a program we use called Teaching for Transformation. And Teaching for Transformation is a framework that we use to just encapsulate our whole day and to take everything we do from a biblical worldview and our interactions with each other, interactions with the kids, all of our lessons, all of our curriculum. How do we wrap that around in a Christian biblical worldview and then teach our kids to go out in the world and do the same thing? So we had 2 days of training. At the end of the day, Thursday, we had time to come back together as a staff and just talk together about the why. Why do we do this? And we only had a half hour, and I had to cut us off at a half hour because there was so much energy in the room about why we do this. And rigorous curriculum's great. And test scores are great. But if those are the only thing, you can go to a public school and get those things. So why are we here? And it's to take students one step closer to Jesus. Right? That one extra step closer to Jesus. And so there are 10 habits of living that kind of encapsulate the Teaching for Transformation framework. And I would go through all 10, but you probably don't want me up here that long. So I'm going to pick 4, and I'm going to give you little tidbits and little stories of students and experiences from 4 of those habits of living that we do. The first one, well, it starts out with a deep hope. So each of our teachers come up with a deep hope for their students. It's this 60-year thought of where do I want my kids to be 60 years from now? What do I want them to remember? And I'm going to read Liz's deep hope here. It says, my deep hope for us is that we experience joy in our discovery of how the relationships we build and the active learning we engage in will impact God's story as we partner in Christ. Last year, Liz had a student who came from Muskegon Public Schools. He went K to 5 through Muskegon Public. He came to us in 6th grade, and he was a difficult child. I spent a lot of time with this particular child in the principal's office. At the end of the year, Liz has all her kids write their own deep hope and their own goals for the future. And this child wrote this out of the box, out of nowhere piece that talked about he didn't want to be what he used to be. And how his life at home was better because of being at Muskegon Christian. And Liz emailed me and she goes, this is undeniable proof. My deep hope and philosophy of teaching came to fruition this year. Amazing what God can do. One step closer to Jesus. One of the habits of living is God worshiper. And Allison Westra sent home a packet to all her students to go home to engage their families into these habits of living. One of the punch cards had on pray with your family. And one of the parents shared this from that experience. We've been trying to have her pray out loud for forever. We offer the chance at bedtime and mealtime and any other time to say family prayers. She has always declined, being scared to have a responsibility, even though we've tried to make it as real and painless as possible. You're just talking to God, just like you talk to your brother. Tonight we read through the new at-home Teacher for Transformation project her teacher sent home. And she finally worked up the nerve to lead us in bedtime prayer. She wanted to hold her brother's hand and hide under the covers while she led our prayer. But she did it. She was so truly proud of herself. She squealed and laughed and hugged us all as Mom was fighting back tears of joy. And she asked if she could pray more because she had more to pray to God. She asked God if she could go to school every day because she only went to school 3 days. And she thanked him. She thanked him that she was loved by her brother. It was the floodgates opening up. And after we said our final goodnights, we left her alone, and she went back to praying even more. We didn't hear it all, but we caught bits and pieces, as we weren't expecting her to go back to praying more when we left her. My mama heart is overflowing and thankful for all the great people around us who pour into Christ, into our kids alongside of us. I'm grateful for God allowing me to be the mom of these kids. One step closer to Jesus. Another habit of living is justice seeker. Miss Hall had a project with her class, and she posed this question: what does it mean to be a justice seeker? And her class comes up with, people aren't as nice as they could be around school. We could be nicer to each other. And so our kids came up and they discovered that everyone was not being as kind as they could be at MCS. And they looked at the long-lasting impact of unkind actions and unkind words to a person. And as I was giving a tour to a new family coming around school, I was stopped mid-tour, rounding around the corner from 2nd to 1st grade, and I was stopped by 20 kids in a line giving me a hug. And this family was shocked. Because part of the kindness challenge was giving hugs. And it's COVID, but I couldn't squash their feelings, so we went with it. This family will be joining us next year at MCS. Image reflecting. Students bear the image of God in their daily lives. Being an image bearer isn't something we do, it's something we are. We learn to see God's image in others. The more Christ-like our actions are, the more clearly Christ's light shines in a dark world. Over the summer, if you've been to MCS, you've seen the new windows, the siding, it's beautiful. Being COVID as well, things got pushed back a little bit. We weren't quite done at the end of the year. So outside our 3rd grade Spanish room, there were some workers finishing up the metal siding going up on the outside. Most teachers in other schools would be annoyed by this. There's people right outside my window working, and I can't get my lesson done. This teacher took it, Erin Studer took it as an opportunity. Her student went up to the window and asked if they could pray with that worker who was working outside their window. Come to find out, that worker didn't speak any English. Luckily, that was a Spanish immersion class. So that child prayed with that worker in Spanish. It was such a beautiful thing. One step closer to Jesus. Last one I'll talk about is community building. Students will be active pursuers of builders in the community in their classrooms, their neighborhoods, and the global village they're a part of. We had Brian Scheidler came to me with a story, and at first he came to me and said, "Nate, I need to talk to you." When the board president comes up to you and say, "Nate, I need to talk to you," my mind goes about 20 different directions. Luckily, this was a good thing. He was part of the Friday crew, and they were done doing their business. Brian mainly oversees everything, doesn't actually work. It's true. He'll admit it. And he went to his truck, and he just watched recess happening. And they were playing kickball. And if you remember from playing kickball, if it's anything like me, there was arguing about who's next in line, who's the next pitcher, you're out, no, I was safe, and this went on and on and on and on. Brian came to me and he said, "Nate, this is a well-oiled machine. These kids didn't argue. They got in line. They let others go in line ahead of them. They let people pitch. And it was this beautiful community. And they didn't need to argue." One step closer to Jesus. And so as we look at MCS and the future and how we can continue bringing kids one step closer to Jesus. You'll see some of these projects that we have if you go around and you see some of the plans we have. When Becky and I moved to Muskegon, we were looking for daycares for Nora because she wasn't old enough to come to MCS yet. We were on waiting lists, long waiting lists. We actually got a call maybe a month ago saying after a year and a half they got to our name. Muskegon's known as one of the worst daycare deserts in the country. And if anywhere is going to take care of our youngest kids, it's MCS. Somewhere with a 140-year history of doing this well. And so the addition would add 4 classrooms onto our building that we could do infant, toddler, and more preschool care. The other is outdoor education and knowing how our students learn differently than maybe they used to learn. And you'll see some of the plans on there. We have a greenhouse going up this summer. And the kids can go out and grow things. We have an apple orchard being planted at Muskegon Christian. We have a native wildlife prairie going in our property. And just knowing the hands-on learning experience that these kids can have to move that one step closer to Jesus. There's a gymnasium project where we could get together all as a school. It's tight. It's very tight when we try to get together in that little gym. I actually haven't tried it yet because COVID. But having that large space, the gymnasium expansion, would allow us to have community events, to have us all together in one place. That's the vision we set out for MCS. I thank you all for being here, for the dedication you have in our kids, our staff. They feel your prayers. We feel your prayers. Thank you so much. We have a slideshow. We're going to show you of fun kids smiling, because who doesn't love that? And then we'll bring Jeremy Leonard up.